well, we will get started. So good afternoon, and welcome to IACAC's Lunch and Learn series. My name is Joe Freeman. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Beacon Academy, and I co-chair IACAC's Ad Hoc Committee on Professional Development, which is bringing you this series. You may recall a few months ago when we resurveyed our membership asking about feedback regarding professional development. Many of the topics that we are covering during this series came from that survey. Multiple responses indicated that our members would like informal space to connect with each other and to discuss some of the things we face daily as admission and counseling professionals. It is our hope that this series will do just that. A few housekeeping details, and then I will turn it over to our awesome facilitators who will guide our conversation. We ask that participants be mindful that this is a professional space. We ask that you keep conversations both focused on the questions under consideration and respectful of the experiences of other participants, especially as some topics might carry significant impact with colleagues. At the end of today's event, we will be sending out a survey about your experience. Please take a moment to fill this out and submit it, especially since this is our first time hosting an event of this nature. Obviously, it's lunch, so if you need to eat, if you need to take your camera off and eat, we completely understand. And then finally, if you are not yet an IACAC member, or if you need to renew your membership, we encourage you to visit www.iacac.org to learn more about the benefits of membership. Enjoy your lunch and learn, and thank you for your participation. Without further ado, I will turn it over to our facilitators, Julie Nelson from Xavier University and Todd Burrell from SIU Edwardsville. Thank you.
Oh, you want me to go first, Todd? Very well.
Absolutely.
So as facilitators today, we are not here to do any kind of presentation, no kind of PowerPoint, God help us all. We are just here to kind of make sure the conversation moves along, and certainly to get all kinds of tips and tricks from each other. Just to give you a little bit of background, I am a regional representative for Xavier University. I've been at Xavier now. This is the start of my 13th year. And prior to that, I too had a sabbatical. But before that, I was at Bradley University as 8 years as a regional. So this remote learning or remote working environment is not new to me, but the fact that everybody else is remote is certainly very new. So I'll let Todd introduce himself.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. Looking across this screen and seeing names out there that I recognize, there are a lot of experts out on this call, on this Zoom right now that I hope also will share advice and information. Again, as Julie mentioned, we don't have a PowerPoint, thank goodness, and we just have thoughts, and hopefully that will lead into much discussion here about this. But a little bit about myself. I'm actually in the office today, so here at SIUE we're doing some. The team is about a third of the team's in the office each day, so we're back in. That's been for about a month and a half or so. So I'm in the office today, but again, we're working that virtual environment. And that was new for me. So I had a lot to learn from my colleagues and how to balance that and what to do. And again, hopefully we can provide some ideas and some thoughts, but more so lead to discussion on it. So knowing the group that's here today and seeing some names that, again, I have looked up to and looked to for ideas here. I talked with Julie, we talked the other day. And one of the things that I said I'm looking forward to is during this lunch and learn is I feel like I'm going to learn a little bit, and maybe how to be a better manager, a better supervisor, even to take away some ideas that hopefully I can bring to the team here. So I have the chance and the opportunity to lead as well. So I'm looking forward to this discussion and learning from others just as much as hopefully maybe even sharing some thoughts and ideas that I have. But again, hopefully that you'll be willing and able to engage in that discussion and take away something from it. I always feel like any type of webinar, if I can take away one thing and use it and practice it, that would be a good thing. And I think we'll have a few takeaways, if not more than that, from this one here. So thank you very much for joining us on this. And one of the things is that I guess I'll kick off here is, and we have some notes here, Julie and I we shared and we talked, and I think a lot of our thoughts are very similar, but one of the things with these meetings here that I've always learned is, make sure and leading the meetings and working with remote staff and virtual is, we've kind of adopted a model here of grace and flexibility. And what that means is that I used to be like, okay, here's when you got to be here, here's when you got to do this. And wow, the pandemic shifted all of that. And again, we kind of, work with the idea of flexibility, the trust and the grace, and knowing that there's so many unique things going on in the virtual environment. We have a Chicago team too here at SAE that are remote and always remote for us. And so we've had the chance to work with them and learn from them as well. But again, when the whole staff went that way, I think one of the first things I learned is that, okay, you gotta be a little bit flexible, understand that at home is a little different. There might be some things in the background that you typically wouldn't see, and things that people have to get done as well. And so it's just in a different environment, and I had to learn that. And again, it's the institutions kind of adopted that grace and flexibility, and I feel like I need to do that as well. And again, we've been working with our Chicago regionals for a long time, but this really opened up my eyes even more on how to work with the virtual staff and letting them know. But the other thing that we did was we shared expectations. Here's what it's like to work from home. I've had the chance to know many regional reps many times, and the image sometimes, even way back when, I'll say many years ago, was like, oh wow, I'd love to work from home and I'd be able to do all this. And I have to say, sometimes the regional rep job is a little bit more difficult, because how do you leave your office? The phone rings, and okay, do you answer it? It's 7 o'clock at night and the student calling back. So to set those expectations and know that, okay, your work day is still the same work day, maybe a little bit of flexibility and grace built into that, but yet that you do the work day and meet the expectations and know it's going to get done. But then there also has to come a time when you shut it off and say, okay, I'll get back to them tomorrow, because if I was at the office, I couldn't do it. So you have to find that shut-off time, and I think that's a balance that many individuals have had to work with as we've gone virtual, all of us here. So again, we set expectations. Here's what we would want. We put the trust in the staff, knowing that the projects are getting done. And again, that's been something that I think we've all talked about, at least here in the team here, and when I talk with colleagues across the state and the nation. So wanted to share those few things as I kind of kick it off. And Julie or others, anything else?
So how have those of you who are either supervisors and managers, or certainly those of you who are not, how have you kind of come to that agreement on grace and flexibility, and really understanding that working from home is different than working in the office? What kinds of things have happened in your shops? And you can either type in the chat, or you can unmute and share your experiences.
Okay, I'll add, we've allowed people to have their camera off. And also reminded them that the phone still works. It doesn't always have to be Zoom, right? Sometimes I pray for someone to call me on the phone. And I think just that, alleviating some of that tiny bit of stress that adds up to a whole lot of stress, made a huge difference when Carlene allowed me to manage regionals at DePaul, and we went into this new way of working.
Hi, everyone. Mariana with UW Milwaukee. I've had to kind of model it myself to my team. So I have a no meetings block on my calendar. I have 3 kids. One is an 11-month-old baby. So I've had to really kind of just from the very beginning start with, guys, I can't. My home life is just not conducive to the situation. So I'm going to tell you how I'm going to modify my schedule. And for those of you who feel strongly that you have to do the same, let's have a conversation about it and see how we can fit in your 8 hours in a creative way and just make it work. So far so good, but there are days that are harder than others.
And I think, Mariana, with that, what you mentioned too is another thing we talked about, how you got to fit in your 8-hour day with all the other responsibilities that you're now in charge of. I don't know how parents are doing it with teaching kids. I just can't fathom. We don't have kids, but there I am, and little ones too. But I don't know how parents are doing it, whether you're teaching them or having to now be with them. I think it's great to be with those family members, but you have a responsibility outside of the job as well. And again, there needs to be a lot of grace and flexibility with that. But one of the things we talked about is if you need that balance, okay, I can't be there for, this time. I can make the meeting, but I'm going to have to take my kid, teach him a class or something like that. Great. Let us know, communicate. I'm going to be doing this, and then I'll be putting the work in a little bit other time. I think that's absolutely fine because, again, this is so unique for all of us that we're all virtual for the most part. And I think that has to happen. And I really just think that that's very important to allow people to continue to do that for their family, to be there for them, know that they'll get that work done. Just communicate that with supervisors and leaders. I just say, let us know. Don't surprise us when we call and say, hey, there's a meeting and I didn't read that because I wasn't working. Okay, let us know if you're not going to be there. That's very simple. But then also we'll work with you on that. And that's one of the things that I know we've done. And I've learned a lot in these 6 months now of, being grace and the flexibility is trusting people just as long as they let me know what's happening, going on in the communication.
I think the hardest thing for me is this being my very first year being professional, and I've gotten used to this type of workspace, and then all of a sudden we're virtual now. So I'm adjusting to that. So that's been really hard. But hi, Todd, by the way. And then another thing that I have realized is Zoom fatigue is a thing. I think being on Zoom versus being in person is completely different. And not that I'm not as focused as I would be in person, it's mentally exhausting. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can agree with me on that.
Absolutely, Rachel. I say that all the time because, in a normal in-person meeting, there are times when you kind of check out a little bit. You write something in your notes or you sit back in your chair, but you feel like on Zoom, if I'm not here and nodding and listening and being an active participant, all of a sudden I'm, playing words with friends, or I'm doing a crossword puzzle, or I'm crocheting or whatever, so maybe I might be guilty of all three. I don't know. But, I think that's what is so exhausting, is that you don't feel like you can turn off at any point in the meeting lest you be looked at as, not interested or not listening or whatever it might be. So absolutely, I think that contributes to the exhaustion. And then this kind of ties into Carlene's comment that parents are tired. I think, yes, parents are tired, but I think we all are, because I was reading an article the other day, and it was about how at the beginning of the pandemic, we all had this adrenaline surge. Like, oh gosh, here's a problem. We have to solve it. We have to come up with creative ways to deliver our content from the admission side, but certainly to support our students across the board, and then figure out how to motivate students to finish their school year, effectively. And so we all had this surge of energy. And now that there's no end zone, there's no finish line, we are still operating in that like fight or flight mode. And so it is mentally and emotionally exhausting for all of us to be able to say, okay, I know I can let down because 2 weeks from now it's all going to be done. We don't know. And so I think giving yourself that grace and flexibility to take some time off. I mean, that's the one thing that we've really been talking with our staff about, is we all know we have vacation days. It's not like we can go anywhere really, but to even just take that one vacation day and say, I'm turning everything off today. I'm not going to think about work, I think is really helpful. So Kimberly Zimmerman has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so how do you all justify flexible work schedules for those who aren't parents? That's a great question.
Yeah.
I feel like our office gives grace to parents, but not the rest of our staff who might also need flexibility for a variety of reasons. We give flexibility to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something, parent or no, you need to be able to say that to your supervisor, to your manager, like, I need this time for whatever it is, for mental health, to take care of my dog, to whatever it is. And and be able to feel very justified and not like you need an excuse for it. We all need that flexibility to be able to get our jobs done effectively.
I
Todd, you were
love
going to say
that
something.
question, Kimberly, because I think that's very important. Again, to know that it goes for everybody, and I think that's communication with the supervisor. Hopefully, the supervisor will be very understanding, saying, "Hey, here's what I'm going through." I will tell you, these are some trying times that we are all in. I wish we were not in a pandemic. I wish we were not in the situations in the world that we're in with the racial injustices. I just do. And I think my job as a supervisor is to listen to the staff, listen to the team. Also let them know it's okay. If you're not feeling okay, it's okay. Let me know, and then we can work. Sometimes, as you mentioned, it might be take that wellness day or take that day off because there is real, as you mentioned, Rachel, Zoom fatigue. But then just the worldly issues, it can weigh a lot on many different peoples in many different ways, and it has on me. And so, again, it's not just with the families, with the kids, and the parents, but with everybody, because all of us have those things that were going on that we might just need that day. And I think in my many years, I've been doing this 27 years, not all in a leadership role, but I've learned a lot in the past 6 months of how I need to be more flexible and listen, expecting the communication. I will always say that, letting me know what's going on, but being able to offer that to anyone when they ask. And I would hope that your supervisor would allow you to say, let me talk with you for a second, you share your thoughts, and then there's that flexibility and that grace provided. Love that. Thank you for adding that in, Kimberly.
Hey, Angie, do you want to comment on your piece in the chat?
Sure. I, like Julie, have been regional for most of my career. I'm at Bradley University. And I think a lot of people, when everybody went remote, was like, oh, but you're regional and this is how it always is. But when everybody's on campus, there's space between things. Like people have to walk from their office to a group meeting, and then there's banter, and then the meeting starts, and then the meeting ends, and then people leave, and there's space again. And the thing I think that's been the most interesting to me is that Zoom meetings, there's no space. Like this will end, and then I will click on next meeting, and it will then start. And that shifting has been interesting because you really, your brain doesn't have time to even process sometimes from one thing to the next. And so whoever mentioned it before about blocking in their calendar that time, I think is so important. We really use Google Calendars in our office, and I've really challenged my staff to put their own time in there so that their meetings don't go back to back to back to back, because they get burned out faster when you can't process anything, or even just take time to like go to the bathroom. Like if you have meetings back to back to back to back to back all day, all of a sudden it's 4 o'clock and you're like, I have not eaten or left this space all day. And that can be a lot, and it's not sustainable.
That's so true. And then Angie, I'm going to say something. I just love following you. You seem to have the most positive. So anybody wants to, you follow everything that you do. You're like, I'm posting about this. I'm meeting this student today. You I think you posted a picture of you on the quad or something. It was just really neat to see your adventures. I'll call them that if I can, if that's okay. But it's just fun to see your posts because everything is about that positivity. And that's been kind of fun, a way for me to connect with colleagues that maybe I don't know them as well, but just say, wow, I like that positivity because it's something neat to see. So I wanted to share that because I always like to follow your admissions road, and it's just really neat.
Thanks. I'm wearing yellow today, not red. So
I know. I just want to throw it out there for others. I know, again, looking around the screen here, are there best practices that others are using, that in your office that you're seeing, maybe you're leading that, or you're part of a team that you'd want to share that, ways that you felt like supervisors or you've been supported in this virtual environment, are good things that your team is doing at your institution or school?
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I work for the University of St. Francis in Joliet, and I am a regional admissions counselor, so I work with Eric Ruiz. And, you know, the pandemic has been a blessing to me because I've been a regional assistant director since September. And then when the pandemic hit, every morning at 9 o'clock, we had a team meeting. And, you know, I felt part of the team up till that point, up till the pandemic, but now I really feel part of the team. So I did ask Eric if we could continue those daily meetings. And so we have, since they've gone back to the office. And so I think that's really important if you're not including a regional admissions counselor in a meeting on a regular basis, you probably should do that because it's important for them to feel part of that team.
Thank you for sharing that. Others that are leading a team or part of that ideas, best practices, I'm taking notes.
April, you're still on mute, girl.
Oh,
thank you. Because I'm talking to the camera and nothing's happening. Okay, cool. Hey, y'all. I'm April. I'm from Iowa State. I am actually an on-campus recruiter, and so this is my first experience working virtually or working from home for the most part. So right before the pandemic hit, probably towards the end of last year, early January, our entire office went to a flexible schedule work model because we changed departments on campus. And so that's been super helpful because after that first semester of I kind of make my own schedule and I get up when I want to, and I'm not a super morning person anyway, so it's hard for me to focus in the early hours of the morning. I like to work later in the day. So we have like our core hours where meetings only happen from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. and your schedule is based around that. So now I've had to implement exercise into my life. So I get up in the mornings, go do my little exercise, and I don't start work until 9 o'clock in the morning. When I noticed over the summer when we were doing our summer hours and they were a little bit less constrained, I wasn't focused until about 9 in the morning anyway. And I ended up staying later instead of just starting at 9, and I don't get off till about 6 o'clock. But for me, that's fine because I'm not going nowhere, no way. So it's been that model and that schedule has been super helpful for me in particular because I don't do morning. So yeah.
I love that you mentioned exercise. That is something too I've tried to do and incorporate, and it makes you feel a little bit better. Even if y'all like, I don't do that, it's just getting out and walking or something. It just is a great way to start the day. And I think it helped me get through the past 6 months, and I hope it'll help me get through again as this, I wish it wouldn't continue, but as this continues, I think it will. So love that you mentioned that too. And the flexibility that your staff and your supervisor allow you to do that, April, is, and like you said, you're putting those hours a little bit later then, and you're getting that time in, but you're more energized and focused because I like that.
Absolutely. And I was go ahead, Wallace.
I'm just basically finding, at least with my department, that everything going on right now just provides us so many opportunities to, just kind of start fresh. And I think it's opened a window for maybe people in the office who have talents or, abilities to really contribute those to the work that we're doing and help us really evolve. So I've seen a positive aspect of this is, at least for my particular workplace, everyone's really open to hearing everyone's ideas and really giving that that open door to people who can just really run with something and just learning from each other. And as a result, we're all learning and we're all improving, because I know when everything started for me, I was so nervous about doing my presentations online and like making a major mistake in front of the world, but I found that my audiences aren't always that big. So, so it's not really that much of a issue. But I was so panicked, and just, you know, having my coworkers to kind of let me know the things that they were doing, and for us all just to be honest and just discuss what our trepidation was, it's really helped make things that seemed so scary in the beginning really be like, oh, okay, we can move with this, we can transition into this. So that's the one thing I found to be the real positive, that leadership and everyone at every level, and I even think this has been modeled at the whole university, that everyone's input is valuable, everyone's ideas are so much more, they've always been important, but they're extremely critical now because we're dealing with such big issues that senior leadership doesn't have the answers to this. And so I just really have found that, you know, I think that support's there, and just really relying on everyone's talent, that's really impressed me.
Thank you for sharing. That's well said. Thank you. Others up there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Isabel Reyes, and I work at Arupe College, which is it's a small college as part of Loyola University. And I just wanted to share two things that our college has done as a whole, which I felt really helpful. One is that we, ever since we went into quarantine, our social worker started to hold weekly gatherings for faculty and staff to kind of just debrief and just talk about our stress and how to manage our stress a little bit better. And I found that really, really helpful from a managerial perspective, but then also just a way to understand where everyone else was in terms of how they were adapting to quarantine life. And then second, what I've done with my colleague, Blair, who's been really, I think, someone mentioned the word grace, and I just feel like I think everyone has been very graceful ever since we went into quarantine. But I think we've really kind of increased the capacity of our own communication. So now I think we communicate even more so now that we're not in the same office. I think, you know, we've definitely allowed for like not having to just meet over Zoom all the time, and phone calls have been really, really helpful. So I think just being really understanding of each other. So I found that really helpful. It's great to see everyone here. It's wonderful to see so many participants on the call. And I'm sorry, I'm muting because I'm eating my lunch. This is the lunch I haven't eaten. So
Lunch and learn. Thank you for sharing that. One of the other things that that we talked about, and Julie and I, in preparing for this, and it was fun. That I love that someone mentioned talk on the phone, because, you know, the first instinct again was, okay, Julie, I'll send you a Zoom. I'm like, no, we just talk on the phone. We just sent ourselves. I'm like, okay, great, let's talk. It was so nice and different, and I'm glad that was brought up on here, because I didn't have to click on the link again in the Zoom. Not that I don't mind that, but it was just neat. So I'm glad that got brought up. But we talked a lot about, you know, ways ways to engage staff and all that. And I know one of my colleagues in the chat mentioned about, and it's someone I got to work with as well, have the pleasure of working with, but she wrote my supervisors incorporate a monthly read, and each week at the end of the meeting, they have a discussion about it. And I have had the opportunity to see this and see how that's helping. And I think that's really neat, where it's a read about, not necessarily about, okay, how to recruit and get more students. You know, you think, okay, let's just focus on that because that's what we have to do. But it's about the worldly situations going on. And again, and that just, to me, I'll say that heavy burden at times that are on people that, you know, we need to just reflect and discuss that. And so it's neat to see that's happening, because again, when you're not in the office, and it's hard, I can walk out of my office and have a 15-minute chat with someone. But when you're, as Angie mentioned, clicking from Zoom to Zoom, you don't even get to do that. It gets so tiresome. Whereas when I walk across campus for another meeting, I would see people and I kind of become energized by it. And so it was just a different discussion than what I knew. I was going to go talk about the purpose of recruitment in the meeting and all how it tied to the admissions office and what we had to do. So again, I mentioned this book read, and I think that's great. And I know the team has picked, you know, there are many options, and they kind of did a pool or bracket to say, narrow it down to which one. And it's been great to see that. But are others doing anything like that and allowing an opportunity to just talk about yourself or the things that are going on during this time as well? I hope that the supervisors or even just ask your supervisors, that's something you can do, because again, you can get so zoomed in to next that you don't take the time to do that, and then it weighs heavily on you. So anybody else doing something like that what Rachel posted, or any other ideas in relation to that?
We'll call it the Mary Poppins principle, that in every job there must be done, there's an element of fun. So how are you incorporating fun in any way into what we're doing? I have a standing, and it's Zoom, I know, but I have a standing Zoom happy hour with some of my admission colleagues so that we can talk about everything except work. And so just to know, oh my gosh, Thursday night, I can, you know, grab a beverage and just chat about crazy stuff. It feels good to have that little bit of normal in my week.
I'll share something that we did at Beloit. We leaned in to the athletic department, who also is feeling, you know, fall sport coaches not feeling good at most schools. And we were aware that within the coaching staff is an individual who speaks regularly and is paid to speak about team dynamics and building positive team dynamics. And so we have this every morning meeting, which I both love and loathe. Honestly, 8:30 every freaking morning, we gotta all be in Zoom. I love it and I loathe it. But on Fridays, we now have a reoccurring team building activity led by this woman who is unbelievable. And it's not anything like deep and crazy, right? So this last Friday, it was like, what's that game? 2 Truths and a Lie. Because we just, like, you don't get that coffee pot banter. You don't get to see each other in the eyes. You don't get to hear about the night before and the upcoming wedding and the this and the this. And it was weird on Zoom, right? But it was like, we were laughing and it was good. And so I feel myself saying, okay, well, I'll deal with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because Friday's coming. And so I think the connecting to with the athletic department, particularly the Division III school where we depend on each other so much, really was a stroke of brilliance. And we're hoping that, you know, at another point, they might lean into us and let us help them.
I will share one of the things that we did kind of tying into that, Carin, is we here with our students, there's the Thirsty Thursdays is their evening out, and they've gone out. And so one of the things we had fun with is when it first started is we did have our daily meetings, and it was a great way to connect, especially to connect. You know, we were connecting with our Chicago team when I would only maybe see them once a week, if that was it. So it was really nice to bring the whole team together, and we had those daily meetings. We moved them to a once a week where we kick off our week with that. But we did the kind of the happy hour at 4 o'clock, you know, recognizing that our workday here is 8 to 4:30. And so at the end of the day, let's take that time, because we weren't doing it during the day. We were just clicking from the meeting to meeting and never really talking like this. And so we made it a Thirsty Thursdays, or a Terrific Thursday, or Thankful Thursday, where you were thankful for some things, and we would share those early on. And that was a lot of fun to connect and just discuss things outside of work. And that really was a great way to kind of end our Thursdays. We went into that Friday, that last day of the work week here, and we did those things there. And another idea I wanted to share is it was a lot of fun. I learned this from one of my colleagues. I'm here, but because I heard about it through there, but then I went out and watched it. But you know, when the students were learning in the spring, there was at the University of Tennessee, I think that there was Peyton Manning who surprised the class. That's his alma mater, and he jumped online, and the professor said, "There's a special guest," you know, and he jumped online and gave words of encouragement. I hope I'm saying the right person up and in the right school, but I remember seeing something like that. So I thought, how can I have those kind of like words of wisdom, Carin, that you said that person from the athletic office would do? Who can surprise? So I reached out to various people on our campus, and I said, would you just jump on for 5 minutes and say a few remarks? And it was fun. So for 1 week, we had a special guest at each of our meetings, and no one knew but me who would be jumping on at that time. And it was really kind of neat to hear from others across campus. We didn't have any famous celebrities jump on that we know of, but that was something that it was neat. There were celebrities around our campus and individuals who were supporting us. So it was just a neat way to kind of break up that meeting, but then also hear some words from others. So it was a great time. And I know on our campus, all of our schools, there are probably those individuals that if you're in a meeting with your team, just ask them if they can come on. It was great. They're like, only 5 minutes. I'm like, that's it. Really keep it short, brief, just say a few words, and it's great to see you. And I know schedules are busy, so go back to your schedule. And they loved it, and it was really good. And so that's just an idea I wanted to throw out there that really went, I think, really well and was a lot of fun.
Hi, everybody. Can I share something? I'm Eric with the University of St. Francis. One of those things, like what Todd was saying, is that when we went virtual with us here, and I have my first experience with the regional rep, and Kelly, I know she's on here, but trying to learn how to keep it together and all that. I had to really show the staff that we had to embrace this whole Zoom platform. So we did a lot of things as not necessarily jokes, but things that we would do. So like, for instance, right here, like on my screen, I see the six screens, and we would try to do that game of like, hey, we can, pass it over to here, pass it over to there, and try to make it where they are, that this is just a comfortable thing. This is an everyday thing, and not have to worry about it being, okay, I got to make sure that my camera's on. I got to make sure that my background looks okay. We did a Birdie Bunch thing. We did a prayer for the new students where we popcorned it, and we were able to record it where we were able to show that this is our life, this is our lifestyle, and things like that, and trying to figure that out. Now that we're back on campus, continue trying to live that, because that's still our everyday thing. So I would say for that, the thing that's worked on our side is really just embracing and having fun with it, to show that it's not just work that you have to do. Those things, being creative, and then taking time during your work meetings to do those fun things, to show that we don't have to do the boring stuff all the time. But yeah, Todd was saying that. I wanted to just share that part, and hopefully, if Kelly, if you're listening, I know you mentioned something earlier that I just missed, but just trying to keep them all together. And I think what she had mentioned is like our staff that's here in the office, it's as if they were right next to each other, because when they are calling, like I have my associate director right on the other side of this wall, she just calls me through here. Right, we just keep it that way, because that's the lifestyle we gotta try to embrace. So I just wanted to share.
Thank you, Eric. Great to see you.
Great to see you all too.
And Angie, love that you put in there too about the external. You brought in colleagues from other schools. I think that's a great idea too, to share and to learn from others. Again, this is kind of like, for me, taking ideas away and say, okay, what can I do better to help my team. And so thank you for sharing that. That would be a great idea to see, okay, here, have someone that's mentioned these ideas and bring them on to share with the team. Other ideas, fun things that your office is doing or your team's doing that you want to share or put out here or even type in the chat. I love that you shared the game thing too. That's a lot of fun, and I'm liking that. So I copied that. I'm like, okay, look into that. I don't get a chance to do that much, so yes to happy hours first of all, but then those games, I love that too. Thank you, Mariana. I'm looking around. Other things. I anything else, Julie, you want to add? I got some other stuff, but I feel like
Sorry, I have all sorts of things to add to this. I'm going to jump in too. We have a small group in our department. We call them Boost, and they're a group. It's a small committee that essentially kind of help us, celebrate things. Prior to being working remotely, it helped put on things like an annual barbecue or some get-togethers and things like that. Now they've kind of converted that energy into a weekly newsletter, and it's a one-pager, very brief, kind of like, here's a few links to some really interesting articles that you can read. Here's a very quick survey, and they're like fun and simple questions for the whole department to answer. And then we see the survey results the following week. So it'll be something like, do you have an iPhone or an Android, or do you prefer coffee or tea, or those types of things. So there's like very like quick, brief newsletter, but very digestible. And then they also adjust accordingly depending on what's happening. So last week, they threw in about 5 article links to understanding and exploring implicit bias. But a few weeks ago, it was, great recipes for using summer produce, like those types of things. So it kind of goes back and forth. It keeps things fun, but also allows everyone to kind of have something else to look at outside of our day-to-day work. So it's been really fun and engaging for everyone.
Very cool.
I think one thing that we do in our office, and we're a Jesuit institution, so we leaned into the Jesuitness. We have something we call Magis Mates, and so Magis means more, greater, so Magis Mates, it's the alliteration, it all went. But so we all have a team member that's like our partner. So, and it's a little bit partnered by experience. So we've got, more seasoned professionals with less seasoned professionals. And so we kind of stick to each other, and really play off each other. But then also we've challenged each other to talk to somebody different every day and not by Zoom. And so we're just checking in with different people. Then, we all have our go-tos in our offices, but this has really kind of encouraged us and built some new friendships, which has been fun by reaching out to people we wouldn't necessarily. And I think it's, managing up and managing down as well. Certainly it's not just, I'm going to look at my contemporaries, but, then we all check in with our supervisors too. And so it's, as much as we can't be physically together, I think it's brought us together in a lot of different ways, just because we are conversing with people maybe we wouldn't normally. So that's been kind of fun. And April, yes, there's a lot of, what podcast are you listening to? What TV show are you watching? What are you binging? What was a great movie? So like, again, kind of going out of your comfort zone of, here I'm going to watch The Office for the 472nd time, or for me, NCIS or whatever procedural is on at that moment, to really say, oh, I'm going to try this new thing because everybody's into it. So
I love that you share that, because I'm a person, I love my sports. And of course, for many months there was none, and reruns were only so much. And I don't care to watch the championship of the World Series again for the 3rd time, but I missed my sports. I'm glad a few of them are back, and it's nice to watch them. But others, they'd say, okay, what are you watching? And so I have to share, I would have never found it because I don't even own the Netflix account. Yes, I'm old. I just have that cable line that you plug in. But anyway, but I had the Netflix and borrowed it. And I watched a series and now I'm like, I was hooked. And I've never binge watched anything. But it was 2 series. It was Pose. I don't know if anybody ever watched it on Netflix, but wow, it was awesome for me and I loved it. And I couldn't stop watching it. I binge watched for the first time ever in my life. So I got those great ideas from colleagues that said, oh, check this out. I'm like, oh, check it out. And loved the music and loved everything about it. So it was very educational and just awesome for me. So I'm glad that you mentioned that and shared those little things like that are just neat ways to help with the conversation. I saw Carin put in there too, and it was to Wallace's point about this is definitely something that we've never done before, and I so agree. One of the things that I like to do is I like to read a lot of articles, obviously a lot on admissions. I read the Chronicle each morning, Inside Higher Ed, Diversity in Higher Education. I get all those emails sent to me with a summary of stories, and there's just great stories in there. And there's a lot of stuff about obviously campuses opening up now and what's happening, but some other great stories there too. But the other thing I read yesterday came across our emails, the IACAC admission essay, and there were some great stories in there. One by Julie Nelson writing about it. I love that read about her son, which I can't believe is going to school, college. But also one of our colleagues, Chrissy Grazi, and I hope I'm saying her last name right, I just know her Chrissy, but she wrote a story in there about fall and what's it going to look like. And I'm like, this is a really good read. And it was really powerful for me to listen to what she said, because she basically, said less is better. When talking with students who are zoomed out, because we're zoomed out, we can put together a fancy PowerPoint and share all the stats on the school. But she kind of mentioned just that less is better. Share your story, have a student maybe share their story, a few photos, and engage with the student in a different way. It's not the full-blown PowerPoint presentation. And I really took that away from that yesterday and reading that article over lunch and thought, this is really neat. I need to try to do that and incorporate that in and share that with the team that I have the chance to work with as well. And maybe that's the new way to personally engage with these students is, again, not just say, okay, sit down for a 45-minute presentation, but let's talk for 15, not too long, less is better, and share with them the story. And maybe that will make that connection for them to our institution. So I don't know, reading those articles and then sharing those with the team, I wanted to mention out there. And again, thought that was a great read from Chrissy yesterday. Other fun things that offices are doing or different things that you want to share. Anything out there? I like what Julie wrote. She sent some notes to me in advance and said, the pandemic, it is mentally tiring and that's not physically tiring. We don't know when it's going to end. Someone sent me an email today that said, how are you going to plan our virtual scholars program in the spring? And I'm like, gosh, I would love to hope that is going to happen on ground, but yeah, part of me thinks probably not. But okay, plan for on ground and plan for virtual. And I'm like, oh, overwhelming. And here we go again. And you just don't know. And you got to make the decisions, but you got to get it approved by those above. And so it is just an exhausting time. And again, not knowing that end is just, I think, how to plan for that and what to do, and keeping our positive attitude. And again, with all the other things going on in the world, keeping that positive attitude or focus on ourselves, but taking care of ourselves as well. And again, I think as a supervisor, it is my job, my role, to make sure that my team, they're taking care of themselves and doing that self-care, that if I can be there just to listen, not to just get on a meeting and say, okay, here's what we got to get done, but say, how are you doing? And listening and to them. I think that's a major thing that I have learned a lot, and it's very important to do that. and I appreciate it because others are asking me how I'm doing, and I really do thank them for that as well. So as a supervisor, I think that's very important to make sure that I take time for the team members to listen to them and listen to the new ideas. Someone said it earlier. There's some great ideas that are coming out of it. I think we were on such a rapid pace there. It was like who could do more than the other. It was wow, it was getting crazy. I think I would describe that. And while I would like to go back to the way it was a little bit, I am also out of a lot of bad, and I will call this bad. It's my personal thing. I don't like the pandemic, but out of this bad, there's come some good. And the good is it has slowed me down, and know that our primary focus is to work with the students. And yeah, the numbers are still going to be there. People are going to ask about the numbers in my position, but then see the stories and the students that we're assisting and helping, but also my colleagues and my team members that I'm working with them, and I learn from them as much as hopefully they may take away something from what I'm doing or saying. And so again, it just really, I think that has helped me to slow down, reflect on life, know that there's so much more to it than just this, but enjoy what I'm doing in this new normal, but really taking away some, I think, what are going to be some good ideas that will shape our profession for the many years to come. Being accessible to more students. Yes, we're exhausted with Zoom, but it was like you have to come and visit campus. You have to physically drive here. Well, maybe for many students, that's a lot of money. Parents have to take off work and they can't do it. So now maybe we opened up a door that people are saying it's okay to join on a Zoom to visit campus. That's okay. If you can't get here, great too. But if not, here's the way. And I think the way we recruit students, it'll open up new doors for many students who maybe couldn't take advantage of what we were doing before, but now might be able to with these new ideas that are going to come out of this pandemic. And it'll be really interesting to see the future. I think there is a lot of hope. And I think there's a lot of things that I look forward to say, how can we be there for the students and the system through this? And I think there are going to be great ideas that will come out of it. So yeah, just sharing all that, throwing that out there.
And Wallace, I agree with your comment too about the humanity. You know, certainly I think given our ability now to maybe slow down just a little bit and to have those conversations and to hear people say, you know what, I don't know, what's your idea? I think that's helpful. But really, I think even just the little peeks into people's houses that we get that we don't normally get, you kind of see people in a different light. You're like, oh my God. Well, I'll give you one of my examples. There's a guy on our staff, our financial aid staff that I don't know very well. And he and I were on a Zoom together, and we had exactly like behind us, like the same kind of painting, the same color paint. I was like, dude, why don't I know you better? So it was a great chance, again, to connect with people in a way that you might not always. So I think if anything, you know, as much as it feels impersonal to be using Zoom all the time, it's given us a chance to really be maybe a little more personal and really connect in a different way and kind of say, not to quote High School Musical, but I will, we're all in this together, right? We're all figuring it out. We all have our own qualms about it, but we're going to make it work. And I think that's part of this too.
I just have to ask for those that, again, we shared a lot here, but I turn to my colleagues that have been doing this virtual environment for a while. And yes, it's a little bit different because everybody is, but for the regional representatives on this, are there any other thoughts that you have and how you've made it work so well during your many years of being a regional rep and how you've connected to the office? Are there other thoughts that you could say, hey, I love when my supervisor does this, or here's another great idea? Anything that those that are regional reps that have been in this environment, I should say, longer than I have, that words of wisdom that you wanted to share?
I will say the one thing that has changed for the better is I get far less emails about the snacks in the break room now because nobody's in the office to have snacks in the break room. So I will tell tales from school. My dear friend Annie Kramer is the Dean of Admission at Drake. And she's got several regionals on her staff. And one of the things that she did before the pandemic, but certainly does now, is when they were having some sort of celebration on campus that involved food, she would send a gift card or have something delivered to her regionals houses, which was awesome. So that it didn't feel like everybody's in this pizza party on campus and I'm here eating my, you know, ramen or whatever. So not there's anything wrong with ramen, but so I think that's definitely part of it. I think the other thing that has helped me immensely is having a physical space that I call work. Certainly that moves around sometimes, you know, depending on the time of year and where the sunlight's better, whatever it might be. But to know that at the end of the day, I close my laptop and I put it away, because the thing that nobody tells you about working from home, especially if you are somebody that loves what you do, you feel like, oh my gosh, my phone's ringing, or I just got a notification on my phone that there's an email from a kid, and but you have to be able to say, you know what, past a certain point, I'm done. Work is done. And to have that grace with yourself, we'll go back to grace, to be able to say, I can only do what I can do. And if I were in the office, this phone will be ringing in a room that I'm not in. And so to be able to say, in order to be who I am, I have to set those boundaries. And I think letting people know that those boundaries are okay is hugely helpful, not only to their mental health, but also to their productivity, because they're not going to burn out because they feel like, oh my God, I'm home and the phone's ringing, so I have to answer it. That's what voicemail's for. You'll be fine.
This is Kelly again from University of St. Francis. And one of the things that Eric Ruiz set up was when I talked earlier about the teams and how great it was to have our morning meeting. The other thing that we do with teams is we have a chat, and that helps me out as a regional counselor, because you know how many times you pick up that phone to call somebody in the office to ask, especially if you're new to the university, you have all these questions, and the chat is wonderful, and our whole team uses it because somebody can just post a question out there and it pops up on your screen and you can answer it. So that's the other thing that I would recommend, especially if maybe you're new or not new, I guess, because everybody on our team seems to use it no matter how long they've been at the job. So yeah, a chat would be great that comes up on your screen. I think that would be another useful tool.
We also have a group me for our staff. So all of the snarky, you know, stuff can happen in the group me, and it doesn't feel like, you know, oh my God, somebody's going to be recording this. So, you know, that's where one of our teammates is a huge Cleveland Browns fan and also likes to rib another one of our friends for the fact that Evansville beat Kentucky in basketball when she was a student there. So, I mean, there's all that kind of stuff, but it's also, here's a cute picture of my dog, and, you know, here's a picture, I ran into somebody over the weekend and they were clearly not in the best shape. And, you know, it's that kind of stuff where we can kind of keep attached to each other a little more personally than professionally too. So it's fun.
Having those kind of things also really relieves the phone calls and the emails that you have to get back to and all that. So that's helped tremendously as well.
And I like what you say, Angie, as well in there, and just maybe escape, go outside, because again, you're not walking from the meeting to meeting. I did that yesterday. I said I had a quick half hour for my lunch, but I'm like, I finished in like 15 minutes. I'm like, I'm just gonna go outside for 15 minutes. It was kind of cool and comfortable. I'm like, yeah, just take that mental break. I could go down and start working on what I need to get done, but that break really helped out. So just got to escape that and do that. Again, at the office, if we probably would do that, we'd walk down the hall and say hi to someone or so. Go outside and take a break, and I love sharing that. And again, I've learned a lot from all of this so far to take away ideas, and I appreciate all of the sharing that has gone on and within the chat and with us discussing here. Are there any final thoughts anybody has? I know we're getting close to our time at 12:58 here, but anybody have anything final they want to add in to this?
Take your lunch break. I know you're all here during lunch, and that's not like, I'm not like, oh my God, why did you know? But really, if you were in your office, you would get away from your desk physically or off campus or whatever, take your lunch. Don't sit there at your computer trying to eat and work. Sorry, Joe.
And if I had to throw in just mine, I'll start off with I said, and it's something our institution has talked a lot about, and I hope I practice what I preach, and I'm learning it and doing it. I hopefully okay, but got a lot to learn, is grace and flexibility. Talk to your supervisor, keep the communication open. If you need that flexible schedule, just talk. Don't assume that they know, because the supervisor might expect you to be there and then you're not, and then that creates other things, but just communicate that. And I think that communication will go a long way, and will lead to that grace and flexibility that I think we all need during this time. So again, I've learned a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to learn from you all during this, and again, I took away some many great ideas, and thanks to my colleague Julie for allowing me to participate with her and get some feedback from her as we shared before this. So I've enjoyed it. I don't know, Joe, if we are at our time or we'll get kicked off here.
You are, and it's not that I want to kick you off, but I will say I have a 1 o'clock appointment with my boss. So like, if somebody else wants to take over hosting, you go right ahead, but I want to be thoughtful about everybody's time.
And we'll do that. We'll be respectful of your time too. We said 12 to 1. I've learned stuff, but feel free to reach out if you have questions or so to anybody on here. Julie and I think if you said, hey, I have a question about what you said, just drop us a quick email or call, look in the directory, we're there. Go ahead,
Or
Julie.
jump in the new forums on the new IACAC website. We can start a thread there and you can all follow along and it won't feel like you have to reply all.
That is great. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I hope y'all have a great recruitment year and a great rest of the day and week. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Todd and Julie, for
hosting.
This is awesome.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care.